people have been telling me lately that Paramount Pictures is about to go bankrupt. And this is something I took at face value for a while until I started looking into the financial performance of all their recent movies. And it's bad. It's really bad. Paramount is really in trouble, in serious trouble. Some of these numbers are abysmal. They're really concerning. And it struck me actually, really. It made me kind of emotional because Paramount Pictures, whatever about the quality of some of their films that have come out in recent years, they're one of the oldest studios in Hollywood. They have a historical and cultural significance and importance to them. And for them to go under would be really tragic. And it would be a huge blow to the Hollywood movie industry. And things would not be the same going forward if Paramount does go under. We've seen they've gone new leadership recently, and we've seen a lot of the release dates of their movies shift around, and they're starting up their own streaming service now because they apparently want to focus on smaller projects. And this is why. It's no surprise. Some of their movies are doing absolutely appalling. They haven't had a movie that reached $1 billion since 2014 with Transformers: Age of Extinction. I know $1 billion, I suppose, isn't really that big of a deal, but for a big studio like this that has multiple movies a year, to not have reached $1 billion in 8 or 9 years, yeah, that's concerning. Most of these movies are struggling to hit 300 million. And the big thing that's probably going to put them under once and for all is Hasbro. Nowadays in Hollywood, every studio has their big franchise, has their main thing going for them. Disney has Star Wars and Marvel. Warner Bros. Has DC. Universal has Jurassic. Paramount has Mission Impossible, yeah, but they're primarily known for Transformers, or at least they used to be. A lot of Paramount's business comes from dealing with Hasbro and their IP, but we've learned now that their contract ends next year, which is part of the reason why Transformers Rise of the Beasts was delayed an entire year. So if they don't renew their agreement, Paramount is as good as dead. That might seem like an exaggeration, but when you think about it, Paramount are the ones that translate Hasbro's IP into films. And when you look at everything they've taken and adapted, most of it hasn't been successful. The G.I. Joe movies haven't gone anywhere. The Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtle movies haven't really gone anywhere. Transformers was doing fantastic for a while, but the last 2 movies have performed really badly. And if you're looking at it from Hasbro's perspective, they're probably very concerned, because Hasbro has these big ambitious plans for their cinematic universe, and yet if you're looking at the state of Paramount, where the studio is losing lots of money on every film they make, they can't afford to throw big budgets at their films anymore, and every IP that Hasbro gives them doesn't give favorable returns, yeah, it's likely Hasbro's probably going to go elsewhere. Especially with this cinematic universe idea. In 2015, they set up a Transformers cinematic universe, and they were apparently trying to do a Hasbro cinematic universe as well. And obviously that was Paramount clutching for straws, probably hoping they could make a big franchise that could stand toe-to-toe against Warner Bros., against Universal, against Disney. And kudos to them for trying. They wrote 10 movies to be released, one every year for 10 years. But the first film to come out of that Transformers writer's room was The Last Night, and it failed financially in a spectacular fashion. Bumblebee came out immediately afterwards, and that also failed. And the other 8 movies have since been cancelled. So that entire idea fell apart before it even began. A bit like the Dark Universe that was set up with The Mummy and all those other Universal films. That went down immediately as well. So Hasbro is probably delaying their plans for things like Power Rangers and Mask, and if they have any other G.I. Joe plans going forward, they're probably going to go elsewhere. In fact, I've seen a lot of people, and I kind of think this as well, Hasbro's best bet is probably to go to Universal, especially with the Transformers brand, because Universal is kind of tied with Transformers already because of the ride in Orlando, Florida. So, because of that history, Hasbro could probably connect with them and get their films out through Universal, and they wouldn't need Paramount anymore, especially with Paramount's diminishing returns on every movie. The last Transformers Age of Extinction made over 1.1 billion. The Last Night made 600 million, and then Bumblebee made only 384 million. That's a huge drop in numbers, and if that trend continues, then with Rise of the Beast coming out, you could expect it to make maybe 200 or 100 million if it keeps dropping at that rate. So you can see why they delayed it. And that's another thing. Rise of the Beasts is probably Paramount's last silver bullet. Everything, they have Mission Impossible, they have Star Trek, they have these other films that they can keep releasing, but in terms of their big main franchise that they're known for, it's Transformers Rise of the Beasts is their last hope. If that movie does not succeed, if that does not make, I'm going to say $1 billion, because if it only makes like $500 million like The Last Night, sure, that'll be somewhat successful, but it won't be successful enough. Even if it makes $1 billion, that'll give them more breathing room, but that still won't help them in the grander scheme of things. They need multiple highly successful releases in order to get back on their feet. And so maybe they didn't want to rush it out because they weren't sure how the deal with Hasbro is going through. And it could also be a possibility that maybe that movie gets cancelled. Maybe Paramount is worried that they'll only make 100 or 200 million back, and so they want to just toss it aside. Bear in mind, they did announce like 2 other Transformers movies to release after it, so who really knows? Paramount probably isn't confident anymore, especially if Hasbro is potentially looking elsewhere. And so, I don't know. It's not the end be all yet. Things are definitely looking really bad for Paramount. But I would say if things continue at this trend, Paramount will probably go bankrupt maybe within the next 5 years, probably. We'll have to see how their next few releases coming out, but everything they've released within the last year, the last 2 years even, has been appalling. They've not been making any money, and they've been losing all of their money at an alarming rate. And as I said, it would be tragic to see such a historic studio just fade into a blip and cease to exist overnight. But that's the way it's going. Paramount needs to figure something out, and hopefully it's not too late for them to do so. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What do you think of everything I've said here? Do you agree with me? Do you think there's still hope left for Paramount Pictures? Do you think Hasbro will stick with them? Do you think Hasbro will go to Universal? What do you think could save Paramount? I want to hear everything you have to say down in the comment section below. And yeah, with that all said, thank you all for watching and please subscribe. Novas Corvius out.